Hello guys, you can already guess what this video is going to be all about. It's going to be a little bit of a rant, and then I'll delve into some ideas as to what they could do to the game to improve on it. Now, we can already understand that Season 2 is negatively pressed right now, right? That nobody enjoys the state of Season 2, at least those that are in the minority right now. I feel like we are in the minority, even though we're the loudest right now, talking about how Season 2 is shit, that Season 2 is not Tekken anymore, that it's something else completely. It's some other monstrosity that they essentially added into the game. The Season 2 patch has riddled with new bugs, new issues with balancing with characters in the game. It essentially has drastically changed the game overall, that the game that we saw in Season 1, it's no longer the same in Season 2. There's more stance 50-50 mix-ups in the game, so we have to guess even harder now each time. There's more plus frames on block that we have to constantly worry about, so that means more RPS. There's now homing attacks, more homing attacks that are also plus on block or on hit, that also delve into more stance mix-ups for more RPS. It doesn't make any sense to me that this is exactly what the developers have been wanting to give to us in Season 2 when they talked about adding more defense. Because, okay, they've added the ability to buffer in sidewalks by blocking attacks. We can now sidestep to the foreground. We couldn't do that in any Tekken game that I know of in particular. That's a nice change. But then they also make it so that we can break grabs in the game, and now they deal chip damage. Even though it's only 1% of it, but it's still, why? Why is I don't understand the mentality of the developers, why they thought that that was a good idea to add to the game. Why punish the player from breaking a grab? It's the same thing with blocking in the game in general. They supposedly were going to nerf chip damage, but it doesn't really feel like they did so. With how characters like Jack, characters like Jin, a lot of characters in the game that can just deal chip damage and can do it repeatedly by just constantly forcing you into the, again, more stance mix-ups that can also deal chip damage. It really doesn't make any sense to me that this is their vision of Season 2, and it really doesn't really feel that they listened at all to our feedback about the game. They just heard it on one side and it came out the other. That's what it feels like. Then they also changed key charging for whatever reason. Like, why did they think that that was a good idea? In fact, it wouldn't have been a big problem, in my opinion, if they just kept the idea of key charging. Okay, instead of getting our next attack being a counter hit, it'll just amp our damage. Okay, great. But why keep the properties of key charging so that we can't block for 6 seconds? Imagine that if we can key charge, it'll amp up our damage for the next attack, and we can still block right afterwards. I think that will be a nice touch, so that way whenever we attack and we use an attack that may even counter hit launch or something like that, we'll deal big damage. That will be cool, but instead what they've done is that they remove the counter hitting properties of key charging, and instead they amp up the damage, but we still can't block. So again, it's one step forward, one step back, but in my opinion this is more like 2 steps backwards and there's no step forward. They're tripping on their asses with what they want to add to the game, is what it feels like to me. It feels like we're the minority here, we're like the loud minority. We dislike what they're doing in Season 2, but it seems to me that there's a lot of casuals defending the state of Season 2, and hell, there's even some influencers too, streamers even, that are defending Season 2, which makes no sense to me if you're somebody who enjoys Tekken for what it was. Because this is not Tekken. Even with the buffs for sidesteps, it doesn't really feel buffed when they're adding more homing attacks in the game that are also plus on block. That doesn't make any sense with the philosophy of improving defense, but then they're also buffing offense at the same time. That cancels each other out, essentially, is what is happening. I genuinely do not understand that. It seems to me that they're just adding what they think will stick, and then if players don't like what's sticking, they're still not going to do nothing to change it. That's what it feels like. Unless it's something egregious, like in the case of, let's say, Paul's new unblockable gimmick, it's a bug. And in the case of Anna as well, they're definitely going to be patching on the bugs with Anna, with the characters in the game. They're also going to be patching out, or trying to nerf Jack's 2-1 into his stance mix-up, Give Me Some Noise, I think it's called. They're going to nerf that. But there's plenty of other things in the game that's a problem, that people have been talking about since they released Season 2. It's already been like 2 weeks, I think, since they released Season 2, and again, players have been finding more and more bugs and more balance problems with the characters in the game. The only way they can improve this game right now is that either they roll it back to Season 1 again, which I think that will be a disaster if they were to do so, because even with Season 2 being bad for how we feel it is, genuinely, I don't think that rolling it back to Season 1 is going to improve it, because that means we still have to wait for who knows how many months, maybe another half year, maybe a full year, for them to give us a proper Season 2. Are we really going to be doing that? I don't think so. And then trying to patch out the 1500 moves in the game in Season 2, if they don't roll it back, that still will take months upon months upon months of them trying to fix it, unless they're going to be working overtime and rushing themselves trying to fix the issues that we think are issues in the game. Because to them, they don't give a shit. They think this is a can't even say it, it's a success. Because if the casual audience are eating it up, but we're not, but they're the majority and we're the minority here, I really doubt they'll do anything to fix the Season 2. They're going to keep it the way it is. So this is why I'm going to go and delve into the idea to what they could do if they were to work on it for the next, let's say, 3 to 4 months. Which I know I won't be there waiting for 3 to 4 months, but if the ones that are still coping and still waiting for some kind of drastic change, this is something that I think of that they could probably add to the game and improve on it. So let's get to it. What I think they could add into Season 2 mechanically that can improve defense is a new mechanic involving heat defensively. I know that a lot of players already mentioned something similar to an idea like that, but I'm trying to give out my overall ideas that I thought of. Now the idea is a type of heat parry or a heat dodge mechanic, but I think of the heat parry more so than the heat dodge mechanic. Now the heat parry mechanic that I'm thinking of is very similar to what Soul Calibur did with GIs. Now if you don't know what GIs are, they are parries, essentially. There are parries. They're called guard impacts. You press forward into your block button in Soul Calibur and that activates a GI. This parries about anything in the game with the exceptions of break attacks, unblockables, and the supers. That's the difference. Though there are some other things too that I think you can't parry in the game, but I don't remember specifically. That will be the same thing in the case of Tekken 8's parry mechanic, except it uses up heat. Now the way that it uses up heat is about 50% of your overall heat gauge. When you pop a parry, you will be lingering in a parry stance. Think of it like in the case of Asuka and June when they go into their back 1+3 parry and they can linger for as long as they want. But in this case, it will be only for 10 frames when using this heat parry. In those 10 frames, if the opponent tries to go for a high, a mid, a low, a jump attack, a power crush, they will still get parried. With the exceptions of moves like unblockables, grabs, heat smashes, and your rage art. The other thing that I didn't include that you could still parry as well is your heat burst. So you can also parry heat bursting if you're quick enough to see that they're going to go for a heat burst, that is. That would be an amazing idea to add to the game. Now, what would happen if you were to parry the opponent? What would happen afterwards? If they do get parried, they will be staggered for 20 frames. This allows you to do anything to the opponent. It could be either a launching attack like a down forward 2, or using some other attack that you want to use that can launch the opponent if you want to do that as well. Or if you're near the wall and you want to go for a type of move that wall splats, you can do that instead. That can be your overall choice. I also thought that the idea would be that if you do parry them, that the next overall attack will be considered a fatal counter hit, so that way you can then hit them with any of your favorite attacks around 20 frames on startup or whatever, or lower, and you can then launch him with that attack. A good example would be, let's say Brian does back 1, and I don't know how many frames on startup that move is, I forgot, but if that move is, let's say, less than 20 frames or about 20 frames on startup, you use it and then you can launch him with that move when you parry them. Or I think forward 3 is a lot faster than back 1, so you can say that as an example you can use to then launch the opponent with that particular type of attack if you manage to parry them with your heat parry. I think that would be pretty cool. The only difference is that if you do end up parrying them and you go for the combo route you want to go for, the combo damage that you're dealing will be downscaled comparatively to when you're using it in the neutral. So when you parry somebody with this mechanic, you will get downscaled damage. But if you do it regularly, let's say when you're trying to use it in the neutral, it will do the same amount of damage that you're usually known to do with that particular attack. I think that will be the balance when using a heat parry, even though it does use up about 50% of your overall heat gauge. The other thing also that you may think to yourself, well then if we end up using 50% of our overall heat, what would happen about when we want to pop heat burst or go and use an attack that goes into a heat engager? Well, you can still do that. you can still go into a heat burst or use your attack that goes into a heat engager, and you can still pop your parries in that state. But you have to be careful when using it because it does dramatically decrease the overall usage of using your heat. Or we can also try to implement that while you're in your heat state, that instead of using 50% of your overall heat, it only uses up 25% of your overall heat when using your heat parries. That way, that if you do decide to use it inside of heat, it just overall decreases the amount of heat consumption when using your heat parry. That will be one way of implementing a system that where if we want to pop in heat, we can still use our heat parries. So we don't have to worry about using too much of it when using our heat state. That's one good way of doing it, in my opinion. The other thing also, when it comes to other aspects of what they can add into the game besides the heat parry mechanic, is also trying to reduce or eliminate this time stop mechanic involved with heat bursting. I feel that one of the biggest issues with heat bursting is that when we try to attack the opponent and we know they're going to go into a heat burst of some kind, but we want to attack them by going with a low attack. Once we go for it and we're already engaging and activating the low attack before they can even pop their heat burst, but if they pop it in the middle of us using the low attack about to hit them at times, it stops time and you're the one still ahead of them when you're hitting them with your low attack, and somehow you're the one getting hit by their heat burst before you hit them with your low attack. That needs to be gone. It needs to be away, right? That's what they should do. They should remove that particular mechanic that it just stops everything in place so that you're the one who is engaging first before they do. That's stupid to me, I feel. They should stop that in general. I also would like a quality of change where, as well as improving the overall movement of the game, I wish they improved backstepping as well as side steps. Yes, they improved it a little bit with the fact that we can buffer the sidewalks through blocking and sidestepping through the foreground and all that shit. But the issue with the game isn't that side steps aren't working, I feel. It's the issue with tracking. Tracking in this game is a big problem. There's a lot of clips already showcasing that, and a lot of players defending that, oh, the tracking is no problem, it's that you're not really sidestepping correctly, or that you didn't time it right. We're talking about a 3D movement game, and there's so many moves in this game that can track to both sides. We should try to eliminate that. Eliminate as many moves in the game that track to both sides. We should add that into the game. We should also make it so that strings should not manage to realign so easily either. If we already stepped the first incoming attack, the next 2 or 3 attacks that come right afterwards should not be tracking at all. You should be hitting the air and not trying to somehow constantly realign yourself when you're stepping. Doesn't make any sense. That should not happen, but it does often. So that's something else that I hope that they also do fairly quickly if they want to add any form of defense to the game. Because again, side steps are buffed, but it doesn't feel that way when tracking is a problem in the game. You can't complain with me and try to retract what I'm saying to be incorrect, because there's a lot of clips showcasing that that's the case. Even the players that have been trying to say that side steps in the game have been improved, that they are actually there, that it does work, are saying that tracking is a problem. And now with the addition of adding more homing moves to the game, there are plus on block as well that go into stance. They need to try to elevate this problem even more so. That's what I think. So yeah, that's overall my thought process as to what they could do for Season 2. I do not know whether or not it'll do anything to really truly fix this game. They'll just do some hot fixes for the characters that are problematic, and then they'll just continue moving on, giving us more gibberish that they're going to improve it, when in reality they're going to do anything huge or quickly enough for them to improve Tekken 8. At this point, if you're somebody who has loved Tekken since Tekken 1, in my case, I started as Tekken 3. If you enjoyed the game from those past games, you either go back to those past games or just pick up a different fighting game. And that's legitimately where I'm at right now. I have no interest anymore in Tekken 8 to continue playing Tekken 8 anymore. I still kind of feel like I want to go back whenever I want to train a little bit, because that's one of the habits that I have, that I want to go back, play some characters and just train, just lab them a little bit and see what's new in Season 2. But then after I play for a while, I'm like, I don't want to play anymore. So I just hop into Naraka Blade Point right now, so you just see on the background, or I hop into Street Fighter 6. So yeah, that's about all. If you guys want to see any other content from me, like Naraka Blade Point or Street Fighter 6 or anything new that may come up in the future, let me know if you want to see that. And yeah guys, I really appreciate it that you guys have listened to me. If you've listened for this long, I love you all. And yeah, stay tuned, stay safe.